The world of the ancient Maya, rediscovered only in the mid-19th century. The question of who built these long-lost, jungle-shrouded cities fired the imagination of a marveling world. A great people had lived here, had loved, fought, worshipped, and died, and disappeared from history. The Maya scribes wrote thousands of books and carved huge walls with their stories. These walls and these stories were eventually discovered. But what became of the people? In southern Mexico and Central America, there are about 2 million Maya living today. Their culture is mixed to varying degrees with that of their Spanish conquerors. But are there still Maya living somewhere who have never left their pre-Hispanic world? One tiny group, the Lacandon Maya, managed to survive unconquered and unconverted long after the Spanish conquest. In the Lacandon rainforest in the southern part of Mexico, they found a place where their skill, their small numbers, and their nearly impenetrable forest allowed them to go almost undetected for centuries. But do they still exist? Writer and anthropologist Philip Gio believes they do.
I was in Naha in 1990, and I loved being there. I've been drawn to the Maya civilization because of the way they looked at the universe. There's a lot of places in the world that excite me, but this area perhaps most of all.
In San Cristobal, an institution named Navalome has been the favorite jump-off point for explorers and archaeologists about to embark on their expeditions into the Maya interior. It's been a resource center for Maya studies for over half a century. The founders of Navalome were Franz and Trudy Bloom, who made it their home, but opened it to friends, explorers, and Lacandon Maya alike. On the walls of this grand old building, there hangs a comprehensive record of the Maya, largely the photographs of Trudy Bloom. Starting in the 1940s, she began documenting a rapidly vanishing world.
Trudy's passion about the Lacandons has probably helped keep them together, protected, supported them from government things. She made them important, made them noticeable so they couldn't just be ignored and pushed aside.
At Navalome, our crew prepares for our own expedition. And here we rendezvoused with Philip Gio.
I'm so drawn by the memory of this place, by the ancient people on the shore of that magical lake. When I go there, it's not only that I discover these people with a different view that's remarkable, but by knowing them, I get a different place from which to view my own life and my own culture. As you find out, what does life mean to these people? How does it work? So much history at the Maya, these Lacandones. What's their present? What's their future? Chonking Viejo, a simple, warm, funny man, and a great soul. Spiritual center to his community, only now he is dead. For years, people have been saying that the line of these last of the original Maya would end with the death of Chonking Viejo. Were they right? I need to return to see if the real people, the Hashwinik, are still real.
The great dining room at Navalome has always been an important place for those seeking answers about the Maya people. The Lacandon Maya can stay and eat here for free. These particular Maya are from the evangelized community of La Canja. Philip took the opportunity to discuss with them their present situation and the recent hostilities between the Maya and the Mexican government. On New Year's Day, 1994, a Maya uprising, the Zapatista Rebellion, shocked the world. San Cristobal was among the towns and cities taken over by the mask-wearing rebel group. Today, though there is little fighting, the war is far from over. the Zapatista conflict continues to see more lives sacrificed and more pressure placed on the Lacandones, since Naha is the center of the Zona Conflicta, the heavily militarized conflict zone. Traditionally, the Maya have never seen themselves as a single group, but as many tribes speaking many different languages and often warring among themselves.
The Maya were peacefully converted in the highlands of Chiapas, peacefully converted to Christianity, which is unique in the Americas. And they took it wholeheartedly. The word for us among Tzotzilis and Zeltales is Cristianoatik, we Christians, which is to distinguish themselves from mestizos, from Mexicans and foreigners who clearly do not act in a Christian manner and can't be Christians.
But at the neighboring Tzotzil-speaking community of Chamula, many things may look familiar until you look a bit closer.
The Maya had the cross way before Christianity. The crosses in the graveyard are there to mark a sacred space. They are Christian crosses, and that these people became Christian 400 years ago. But in many ways, Christianity is absorbed by Maya beliefs. So on the crosses, you can see the decorations, the circular ending points of the cross. Those are the hands of the cross and the head of the cross. There's cross hatching in the center part of the cross. That's the heart of the cross. It isn't that they believe that these things are alive, they're metaphors. But you respect them as if they were living because they have spirit, they have soul. Perhaps a new cross is put in, so you see graves with many crosses. Doesn't mean there's so many people in that one grave. It means that people have come back again and again to celebrate and talk to that person. Many of them are decorated with chevron-like designs that refer to the pine needles and pine boughs that are used to decorate the cross when you need to speak through the cross. So on the Day of the Dead, yellow flowers are strewn all over the graves, pine boughs are put on it, and at that point the cross becomes open. And then the saints associated with the church are now open to listening to you.
Healing ceremonies are still common in the Chiapas highlands. They are a centuries-old mixture of early Spanish Catholic and Maya beliefs.
Part of it is Christian. In fact, a good deal of it is Christian. A lot of it is 16th century Spanish rituals, which look as weird as anything Maya, because 16th century Spanish were pretty bizarre. What you have is a Maya concept of prayer and of redemption and of curing. When Chan King came up here when he was deathly ill, he had a curing ceremony done by a Chamula shaman, which he thought was extremely helpful, a very good experience, and was sort of pleasantly surprised to realize that all the names, the saints, everything was different. There was a feeling about it that he thought was real and helpful.
We left the next morning for Naha with another expedition member aboard, anthropologist Lluís Escartín.
Lluís is to guide me into this ancient world.
I came to Naha for the first time in January 1994 when the Federal Army was rocketing the surroundings because they were Zapatista positions. So we decided among a group of friends to deliver food to the places which were isolated because of the conflict.
The conflict, we were to find out, was still going on, if less violently. Just outside of San Cristobal, we encountered a blockade by Highland Maya, locking in hundreds of cars and trucks. We were one of them. These protests can appear suddenly and disappear as quickly, all under the watchful eye of the Mexican military. The curious thing about the demonstration was the peaceful, casual way in which it was accepted by the hundreds of people who were affected. We took advantage of the situation to grab some footage. Fellow there noticed the video, so you're gonna have to show them. By sundown, the blockade was lifted, and the non-violent demonstration came to an end. Further along down the road, Philip and Juiz decide to explore the ruins of Tonina, remnants from the ancient Maya world. The classic period Maya were far from peaceful. Tonina, rarely visited today because it's within the conflict zone, is in part a monument to military power, Maya 9th century style.
The guide takes us in to see a newly revealed stucco. The artwork is beautiful. The subject is grisly. Death gods, decapitation, war. Tonina is beautiful, but it's only ruins. Ruins of an ancient people. What we're after is the living Maya, living and directly connected to this ancient world.
There was an incredible civilization there way before the Europeans came over, something that was way beyond Europe at the time they were active. Classical period Mayas from about 250 to 900 AD. And during that time, they developed elaborate mathematics. They built huge cities. They wrote thousands of books. And then the civilization collapsed. And no one is sure why. But when the Europeans came over, hundreds of years later, they found all these savages. And they assumed that they had always been savages, when in fact they had a very advanced civilization. And I've been drawn back into that world to see some of that civilization, to see what their worldview was. And as I've gone in, I've noticed how much sense it makes. I think the essential way of looking at the universe for the Maya was that we are the unfolding of some story.
Day 5 of our unfolding story found us well along the road to Naha in La Selva Lacandon in the far south of Mexico. Among our group is Nabalom's resident historian and cook, Doña Betty, who's been coming to the rainforest since her teens.
The first time I came to the jungle, I was 13 years old. We made the trip from Ocosingo to Naha, 2 days by horse, and the jungle was thick. You had to make your way with a machete because that's how thick the jungle was.
Much of that rainforest is now gone. The caravan approaches what is left of it and of its original people. Philip and Juiz begin speculating on the nature of the Zapatista conflict with the Mexican government, which ironically could spell the end for the Lacandon Maya world, which is caught directly between the two.
They have a fantastic universe, which is here, but is unknown. This is, in my opinion, what made the Zapatista conflict, this lack of communication between the traditional Mayan world, not the one of the books of the pyramids, the one living today.
The living Maya.
Yeah, and modern Mexico.
We're at a particular moment with the one group of Maya that were never converted to Christianity, that were never conquered by the Spanish. It's down to about a number of 100 people from this massive civilization. And there's about 100 of them left. The reason they still exist at all is because they've been hiding out in the rainforest for 100 years. The Spanish never found them. But now, of course, you can't hide out on the earth anymore. Everyone knows about them, and all the pressure, there's a war down there. The Zapatista rebellion, the whole area is a war zone. You have all the rainforest being cut down. You have the roads coming in, you have all this economic pressure on them. And so there's a great question as to how much longer they can survive. So why is it important to tell the story now? I don't know, but now is the only time maybe that we can get the story. Because if you go back in 5 years, it may be too late, there may be no one there.
When the almost impassable dirt road finally turned to pure mud, we knew we were near this final refuge of the Maya. The sudden sight of these white-clad Lacandon children racing from the jungle seems almost like an apparition. They seem anything but remote and fearful of our presence. They jump in immediately to help us.
We are back in Naha, and Naha is real.
Strangely, Luis and Philip seem almost at home with these people. People from another age, another time in history. We make camp here in Naha at the Campamento de Trudy, the campsite built years ago by Chongqing Viejo for Trudy Bloom. It seems strange, but wonderful, how much the Lacandon children gravitate to the camp. We found out quickly that the blonde boy, Sakor, is considered a very special one. One of the many sons of Chongqing Viejo, Sakor may one day take on his father's role of spiritual leader of the community, if that community continues to exist. Playing with the children in Trudy's camp, the crew take Polaroid pictures. They remind us of Trudy's photographs, and we wonder whether these records will be among the last records of a soon-to-be-lost past. Day 6. Luis sets out to introduce Philip to the leaders of the community. By meeting these people, Philip hopes to be able to delve deeply into their spiritual lives and experience their sacred rituals, long hidden from the Western world. First we meet Antonio, who was a son-in-law to Chongqing Viejo.
Todavía falta más, ya.
Checarquín.
Ya, pini, ya.
Little did we know then that Antonio's family would be the key that would unlock the door to these sacred ceremonies, and the most sacred of all ancient Maya cities, Yaxchilan. Next we went to the home of Nuxi Solórzano, one of the oldest people now left in the community.
Niño de Camacho. Cuando Cabo murió aquí, eso solo nomás ya no hay. Que compra, no olvidó, cuando quiere pasear otro mes, otro día, no olvidó, trae uno. Listo.
¿Cómo se llama esto?
Es Maya Cuchara. Cuchara es Maya. Su esposa para
Finally, with Doña Betty, we pay respects to the two surviving wives of Chongqing Viejo, Co and Maria Co.
Soy Award.
Ne soy Chichín.
No soy Chichín. Ten soy Chichín.
No, tani chaplo isko.
Yarmia. Yarmia Echko.
Tani isko to tingu.
Ne Yarmia Echko.
The boy Zakor is there with them, and as usual, our camera seems to seek out his bright and energetic presence. There is something almost otherworldly about this child.
A Doña Betty Chichín Mia.
Zakor and Chongqing Viejo's widows take us through the forest to Chongqing Viejo's old god house. God houses, we learn, are sacred places in Naha. We're told that the Lacandones have always kept two sets of houses, one for themselves and the other for their gods.
Zakor, kotenguai. Kosh is kuwatoch. It's kuwatoch. ¿Sí? ¿Está bien?
We learn that ancient tradition decrees that only men are allowed inside.
These are the god pots.
Yeah, those are the different god pots, and they represent the different gods. Zakor is going to show us one of the most important gods.
Esto se llama Ukaba.
Zakor explained that this particular god pot was for the god of rain, the god of water.
Este dios es el dios de la lluvia y del agua.
Sí, es el dios Utarja, Utarja y Tugoro. Se puede pedir, hay tos, Sem, nos ayuda.
He's saying that here, inside, you burn the copal, which is the resin tree, and a special resin tree which is made here, and to give his spiritual food. Incense become food for the gods once they are born. And here, through his mouth, you put the physical food, as it can be corn, it can be monkey, it can be different animals from the jungle, and then you put symbolical parts here through his mouth.
And this, you were saying, is for water? The Metzabok is
Metzabok.
Metzabok is a god related to water.
Yes.
And that's the same as the lake that's near here.
There are many gods, but they are not all the same. There is some gods have more important than other gods. And this is all explained through mythology.
Hach Ta'an is the traditional language here at Naha, but most of the children go to the Spanish-speaking school that looks like public schools anywhere in Mexico. Electricity arrived in Naha just 3 years ago, and so did television, bringing in pictures of a never-before-seen world. Would it hasten their own process of extinction? We wondered. Naha seemed poised at a moment of great change, between old and new, between survival and oblivion. Would the ancient handcrafts that are still practiced by the elders be taken up by the young? Would these people be able to weave their own way through this maze into the modern world with any of their traditions still intact? Or would the lineage finally be broken, severed for all time? There was one more place that we had yet to visit, the actual gravesite of Chanking Viejo.
And then I told him, well, Chanking, you're leaving. Goodbye, Chanking. He says, you take care of yourself. You stay well. I am leaving now, maybe far, I do not know.
We learned that Chanking Viejo, until he died just over a month ago, was considered the real spiritual leader of the people, but not in any authoritarian sense. It was simply that he was the person who was the depository of all their knowledge. What will determine the direction for Naha now? Some are looking for a sign at the gravesite of Chanking Viejo. Ko and Mariako grant us permission to visit the cemetery and the grave. We are told that it's a rare privilege that they are allowing us, complete outsiders, to go with them to visit this sacred and secret place. Deeper and deeper into the forest, further and further back in time, we felt we were visiting much more than Chanking Viejo's grave. As we neared the actual gravesite, the air grew strangely still.
Now that Chanking Viejo is gone, who will assume his role? After a direct line stretching back thousands of years, will there be no new To'ihuanik to tell the old stories, to keep the old ways?
Day 7. The men of the community gather to discuss successorship.
Juiz asked the assembled Lacandones whether they think things will change now after the death of Chanking Viejo. Cayu Mash, one of Chanking Viejo's several adult sons, answers first. He says that now is a time of change, and that now they are getting everything modern. His father saw the arrival of electric light and television. But he says that the old ways will continue. He thinks they will.
Seeing Chanking Viejo dying, it was very sad. It was like somehow seeing I mean, it sounds very nostalgic, but seeing the glory of the past going away somehow. The role of the leader is very important. I see that in Mayan communities, the community, the people rely in the leader. And when the leader is gone, is wrong, the community follows a destructive path somehow.
Yes, I believe that in the future all tradition will be lost because many youngsters do not continue what their parents know how to do. They have no interest in it. Well, they carry on. They go into town and they return with other ideas from there. And it's a shame because in reality, the Lacandon tradition is beautiful. I hope that someone can remain, someone who will continue the old traditions.
On the shore of magical Lake Naha, I find John McGee, who has just returned to Naha. John is the author of Life, Ritual, and Religion Among the Lacandon Maya, and he's been coming here since 1980.
What I was really attracted to, I was studying religion in school, and what attracted me to these people were they were the last of the Maya who were still practicing a religion which was not influenced by Christianity. What I originally studied was the rituals and the mythology and how they related to the beliefs of the ancient Maya. And then, as you can see, beautiful forest, a beautiful set. I started to learn about how their lives, in part their religion, but their agriculture and the other aspects of their lives were so in tune with the forest. These people get several tons of vegetable foods out of their traditional milpas using only axes and machetes. I mean, no herbicides, no pesticides, none of that kind of thing. That kind of knowledge of farming and of the forest, and you can get these huge yields.
Tell me about Chongqing Viejo.
Oh, Chongqing Viejo, if he had been Catholic, I think he would have been a saint. He took me into his household and spent almost 20 years trying to teach me everything he knew. He was concerned that the stories were recorded, that the rituals were photographed or filmed so that there would be a record, because he was afraid that when he died, the people in the community would lose their traditions.
On this year's return to Naha, John McGee's fears seem well-founded. Too much is changing too fast, he says. Now there are only 6 traditional milpas left in the entire community.
I am afraid that the things which make them distinctively Lacandon and different from the other Maya groups are very rapidly being lost. In particular, because of the influence of TV, many of the young people are changing from being these rainforest farmers to being merchants or vendors, to selling goods to tourists at Palenque and all, and that's becoming their main activity. And so they're losing. I believe they will lose the knowledge of the forest. I'm afraid they're going to lose the religious traditions and the ritual practices. They have farmed this forest and lived in tune with this forest without harming the environment for centuries. I'm afraid that knowledge is now in the next generation going to be lost. And cultures change. I mean, that's one of the axioms of anthropology. Everything's changed. And again, I just hate to see, having learned and loved this culture, I hate to see it go.
If the Lacandon community is to survive, who will replace Chongqing Viejo? and lead these people into the 21st century.
On the other side, there are other people who are quite extraordinary in the community, who will come forward, who will not be Charnkin, who will be, say, Antonio, who I find quite remarkable, but in a different way. Antonio has the same calmness and clarity, but a different sparkle. So he will never be replaced, but there will be others.
Antonio. Escucha. Bueno, eso, escuche cosas. Okay.
It seems as if Antonio has something important on his mind today, and he has asked to speak with Philip, to invite him to visit the most sacred of ancient Maya cities.
Antonio tells me he wants to make a prayer to Hachacum, the god of the Lacandones. A prayer for his daughter, who has recently had an operation on her leg.
¿Es ella, hay problema con ella, sí, con su pie?
Sí. Oye, ¿cómo?
Donde operado.
Oh,
¿Operado?
mira, como aquí operaciones allá en malo. Sí, está malo, como antes, muchos años que tiene, bastante años, como sale como 2 años.
The operation was a success, but Antonio tells me he needs to travel to the Maya ruins of Yaxchilan, home of Hachacum, and to perform a ceremony there.
Porque me gusta mucho Hachacum, me gusta mucho Hachacum.
I tell Antonio we can take him, and he agrees. It is a 3-day walk to Yaxchilan from Naha. The chance to witness this ancient ritual in the house of Hachacum is a rare privilege.
We are very excited to be traveling with Antonio to Yaxchilan to see an actual ritual take place. The road south from Naha to the river that skirts the Guatemalan border will take us further into the conflict zone. We knew that we'd be encountering a lot of military presence, but we hardly imagined we'd be passing from one military checkpoint to another the entire way. Checkpoint after checkpoint after checkpoint. We never knew each time if our equipment would be discovered, but we kept filming with our hidden camera.
Sí, de cámaras, cosas de cámaras. De cámara, video.
river. It's as though we've left the Zapatista government hostilities far behind. All the troubles, all the problems, all of it behind us now. Deeper and deeper into the sacred space. He was with us, but no longer one of us. Antonio was leaving our world behind him now, and leaving us behind as well. He had entered the world of his ancestors. He had crossed the line. We followed at a distance behind Antonio, not wanting to intrude into his space.
John McGee explained to me how the ritual works when a Lacandon elder comes to Yaxchilán to offer a prayer to Hachakyum. The typical offering for Hachakyum is a human sacrifice, but it's very abstract. The men make what is known as a xikal. It's a flat wooden board that has a handle on it. And they arrange little nodules of palm, which is copal incense, in rows on the board. Each nodule represents a part of the human body, and the rows are alternating male and female. So what they're doing is They're putting the nodules of incense on the shikao. They're saying to themselves, this is the head, this is the chest, these are the arms, these are the legs. Constructing symbolically human beings on their shikao. Then they stand up in front of the statue of Hachakyum, and they hold the shikao in front of the statue. And they're not just showing this offering to Hachakyum. They are saying a prayer to make the shikao come alive, making those little incense figures come to life. The offering is being transmitted through the smoke, but along with it is carried the prayers, the words of the individual to Hachakyum.
Dạ dọc thì có cái mỏ xe ba mỏ xe nhỏ cái dọc phật thế vậy thì sao nó thà lắc mà cái tin thật cũng thế mà thế cho nó sợ thế mà xe một thì hệ là để các có ta chả khó mà mẹ sao có cô đi phụ to đi mẹ sao cái anh em mẹ sao cái hệ mẹ đây thì các có thì mẹ sao mà dọc là mẹ đây có thùng ta tiêu phụ xe mẹ nó ta cái họ kỳ mò tổ phi mẹ sao mẹ hoa thế lại khá mô thế tô ta ya he tô ta chắc quế mà tiêu lô ya tô áo mẹ về dọc là nà non na chắc quế mà tiêu lô ya tô áo mẹ về dọc là nà non na he về thế này ngon mà nó khá nghe chưa chắc quế chưa ya he chưa đi cái về ta có tiếng quế ta có xa thế về na he về na này thì khá có cho ta có xa thế về ốc nó khá kế thế yo về mong thà cả lão mẹ hắn kế cái mặt cá vét bên này thì mà cả chiều mẹ quá thì cái cá vét bên này có nó bên đâu nổ về cái mà có sao về giờ nó xả thế kẹo hồi à đi qua hồi nó khá nghe đi qua nổ đó theo gió đâu mẹ đi qua theo gió nó khá thế tôi thà chợt về tôi thà thêm tôi thà chết mà lại đi thôi đó ye yo ye không em mà tôi đi không ra đi ta nó tốt ra nó cái xe màคุณta ye tiêu đi nhiều mẹ thì qua đó chịu mẹ quá có nhà tôi thôi ye áo sát tôi rồi anh đem mà tôi thấy này thôi rồi cái đồ ba này ye tôi có thằng nó chỉ mà cái gì nói mà về thì các xe thế sao thế tiêu đi rồi mẹ tiêu đi này nó cái nó thì được sao
How many more times will this ritual occur? No one knows. But it happens still. It happened now. For thousands of years, this has been going on. These rituals, these words, in these very places, in this world of the ancient and still living Maya. And though to the Maya and the Gospel of St. John, in the beginning was the Word, and so the story was written, perhaps it's still being written. Perhaps we can be a part of the writing of it.